And now we go into chapter 7. And here's another thing that it's just so misunderstood. Crazy, silly, churchy stories. But the Lord is going to show us here, because we're on that narrow path. He's brought us in that small gate, that narrow gate, and He's the light, and He will shine light on these things and bring life to us. And let's see, chapter 7, verse 1. After this I saw. This is not John saying, and after these things. I don't think I made it that clear before, but there's places where John says after these things, and some translations will say after this. No, only where John says in the original writing, after these things are you changing subjects. So here you're not changing subjects. It's just, if John could say to you right now, he'd say, and I saw the tribulation start, and those that are going to be saved during the tribulation. And after this, John says, and after I saw that these seals are broken, this debt is paid for those even leading up to, into, and through the tribulation. After this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, and holding back the 4 winds of the earth, so that no wind should blow on the earth or on the sea or on any tree. What this is talking about here, and this is commonly taught, is that this is referring to trouble, wars, disease, something covering the entire earth. You remember we saw in the 4th seal that and authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, that God has held back any widespread wars, nuclear wars wiping out life on earth, a giant asteroid hitting earth and wiping out life on earth. Look at the diseases we make. Look at COVID. What if COVID had been a little bit different and everybody that got it died? We're right on the verge of that. We're right on the verge of nuclear war. But right here you see, after this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth. This means, this is showing you that throughout the church age, these 4 angels are holding back total destruction, total chaos, something happening to affect all of mankind. It's been held back now. What we're seeing, because we're going through the church age, we're going through the breaking of the seals, what we see here is that these 4 angels are holding back total death, destruction, chaos from enveloping all of mankind. In verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, having the seal of the living God, and he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted. Listen here, saints. There's a little catch here. So we have this angel coming with the seal of God, and he cried out with a loud voice to those 4 angels holding back chaos, to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea. It's granted to them, and we're going to see, stick with these messages, saints, subscribe and find these things out. This is so important. But we're going to see where these 4 angels let that go. But for now, and throughout the 2,000 years of the church age, they've held it back. But here comes this angel with the rising of the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea. So it's granted to them do it, but they're being held back. Even in our time, as you hear this message, they're being held back. But in a short time, we're going to come to the messages where they let that go. But for right now, they're held back. We're going through the church age. We've come up to the church age, including the tribulation. That's all it's talking about, that it includes those in the tribulation that get saved, foreknown by the Father. So this angel's coming. And he says, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the bondservants of our God on their foreheads. And here we go, saints, into another misquoted, weird stories that just are bizarre. But that's this 144,000. So this angel's coming with the seal of God to seal God's bondservants. And look what it says in verse 4. And I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 from every tribe of the sons of Israel. And it goes on to describe through through verse 8 that 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel are sealed. Now you got religions, cults, teachings, books based upon that this is 144,000 actual individuals. 12,000 exactly to the number from the 12 tribes of Israel. That's not what this is talking about here. It's another one of the wonderful revelations going in that narrow gate and staying on that narrow way that the Lord showed me that I saw. This number is a representative number of the total. And you see that if you read Matthew 14:21, Luke 9:14, Mark 6:44, they're talking about when the Lord fed the multitude. They were there, they were hungry, the disciples said, how are we going to feed them? And he said, feed them. And he fed the multitudes. But it never gave the exact number. It always said the approximate number and what it was of the men only. It didn't mention the number of the women and the number of the children. And it was only a representative number of the men only, because it was always 5,000. And you see that best in John 6:10. Here's John 6:10 at that time. And Yeshua said, have the people sit down. Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down in number. This is the same word. It's the same exact word there in Revelation, speaking of the 144,000. In number, about 5,000. See, saints, it's a representative number. It's the same word used for number when it comes to the number of the Antichrist, and it says calculated. This is not an exact number of an exact amount of Jewish people who are going to be sealed by God for something. What this is, saints, here's another revelation for you that they're all missing. It's right here. If you stay on the path, the light's shining down from heaven. And it's so easy to see. In this seals, in this breaking, releasing the debt of these throughout the entire church age for over 2,000 years. In the sixth seal, it's mentioned those that go into or are saved in the tribulation. And here, why is it now talking about this here? Because at the end of the tribulation, Israel, going towards the end, especially the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, Israel as a whole, not every single person, not most of them, but Israel as a whole turns to the Messiah, turns to the living God. And what God's saying here is that as we're releasing this debt, forgiving this sin, these Israelis are going to turn to Christ, turn to the Messiah, and have their debt released, have their debt, their penalty broken. That debt released, that debt paid for. That's what it's talking about here, saints. We're covering the entire church age. We've come up to the start of the tribulation, and now these 4 angels are holding back destruction, holding back widespread chaos, until what it's meaning here with this angel rising from the sun, until those Israelis start to turn to Christ, start to turn to the Messiah, and they get saved. They have that penalty applied to them. Their debt is forgiven. They're released to that debt of that sin. They're washed in the blood of the Lamb. And it'll be from all the 12 tribes of Israel, because it'll be Israel throughout Israel, all the people of Israel, not every single one of them. But saints, that's what you need to understand. This is not 12,000 people from 12 tribes, 144,000 individuals that are going to mysteriously come up and do something. This is a representative number, as you see in John, and where I told you in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They all have that story of him feeding the multitudes, and it only numbers some of the men. It says about 5,000. because it's not the exact number of the people that were there, and it isn't here. And it's the same word used for the number of the beast. It calculates up a number. It brings up a total. It's not the number. So here we see this, saints. We still have this other revelation. We have this revelation staying on this narrow path, entering that small, narrow door, which is Christ himself. We've come and we see that the debt is being paid for those even that are in the tribulation. And now, what it's saying is, hold back widespread destruction. Don't let it come upon the earth until those Israelis, those Jews, turn to Christ and they get saved. And this 144,000 represents the total number. It's not an exact number. It's those Israelis that will turn to Christ from all the 12 tribes of Israel in the tribulation period, especially the last half of the tribulation. And now the next message, because it's another important part of this. We're going to break chapter 7 into 2 parts. Because in the next verse, chapter 7, verse 9, what do we see? After these things. So John says after these things. We're going to change subjects, as you know now, saints. We're going to change subjects, and it's going to be so much a glorious revelation of the Son of the living God as we go on with this revelation of the Messiah, Yeshua, the Son of God.